Just say what you mean what you say.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Larisha Speaks, and this is a very special and different episodes. On previous episodes of Larisha Speaks, you'll have me with my guests, and we'll talk in detail in regards to their case. I do want to say for this episode, it's quite different. I'm going to try to get a phone call with this individual, if possible, by the time this recording goes up. But right now, I can't have this individual live because he is currently wrongfully incarcerated on a 60-year prison sentence for a crime he did not commit. And I'm going to try my best to do it as much justice as possible to talk about the details of the case. This is very, very disturbing, very, very heartfelt, very, very emotional, and very, very troubling case. It really, really is. So I'm going to try to give you guys as much details as I possibly can to let you know. Again, my passion is talking with people who have been done wrong by the criminal justice system and making sure that regardless of whatever situation that they're in, if you are being convicted of a crime, you should be convicted of a crime you committed and not just convicted simply because of the color of your skin. And that seems to be the theme with what's going on. And somebody has to do something about it. And in the process of me finding my niche, I'm trying to secure that because I think wholeheartedly, yes, you do have the people out there telling people don't commit crimes, talking to the gangs, talking to the youth. But regardless of that, what about the system? What about the people who are not in gangs, who are not committing crimes, and they find themselves caught in a crime or in a courthouse for something they simply didn't do? And I feel like that's a avenue that is not being heard. Even when you have a person who has a criminal record, just because I was guilty of this crime doesn't mean you can hold me accountable for this one. And that's no excuse for the system to abuse these young men and have them incarcerated for 60 years for crimes they didn't commit. Just because they may have did a crime in the past, or just because they know somebody, or they was in the wrong place at the wrong time. So this one is definitely a wrong place at the wrong time. The young man that this podcast is going to be in regards to Darryl Townsend, and I'm going to talk about it, as many details as I can remember with the conversations that I've had with him in regards to his case. Now, this case should be an open and shut case, being as though at the time of the incident, the police were already on the scene. So this is a clear case of when you see where the incompetence in law enforcement comes in. Competence of law enforcement comes in, and just neglect of duty come in, and just to say you have an arrest, close the books. You know, this is a prime example of that. Police work, the shoddiest police work. I can't even believe this young man is in prison for 60 years. When at the time of the incident of the crime, the police was literally there at the scene and they couldn't even get the murder weapon when they were there when the murder committed. Like, this is what we're dealing with. So based on everything from this case, how do you even get a conviction like that? And it's disheartening. So Darryl Townsend was at a residence in Camden, New Jersey, and the police was there because of an issue with, I believe, a neighbor. So the police was on scene dealing with a neighbor or somebody from another apartment or the same apartment, but he was upstairs sleep in the back room. While he was sleeping, and he was at a female's house, while he was sleeping, the female's boyfriend or ex-boyfriend arrived at the scene. An altercation ensued, and that individual was unalived. And I'm trying to be as respectful as possible because somebody did lose their life in this situation. So I don't want to be dismissive of the fact that someone is no longer here. So that individual did lose their life. After the murder took place, Daryl attempted to leave the scene, which I don't know about you, but if I just saw a murder or somebody get murdered in front of me, I wouldn't stay around to have conversations and have tea and talk about it. But like I said, the police were there. So the police caught him, arrested him, and charged him with this murder. Now, from the way the individual was unalived, he was stabbed in his neck. And if you know anything about a major artery, when you're stabbed, blood squirts everywhere. So blood is all over this crime scene from it sprays in different areas. It's all over this crime scene. There's no blood on Daryl at all. In addition to that, the police, they're there with their body cams because they're already on scene. So they're there with their body cams when the murder took place. They're searching around for the weapon at the time of the incident. No weapon is recovered. You heard me? The person was unalive with the police present at the scene. Daryl attempted to run. He was placed under arrest at the scene. No murder weapon was recovered. The police supposedly searched the house to attempt to locate a weapon, which should be a bloody knife because blood is all over everywhere, and no weapon was found. This young man was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was charged with the murder. He always said someone else committed the murder. He never named names. Now, you know the street code, you can't snitch. And be that as it may, however you feel about the street code, it still doesn't give the state the right to incarcerate somebody because they can't find the actual person who did it. So because you won't tell me who did it, the state should not be retaliatory in locking people up just because they can. That's unacceptable. And in addition to this, another important factor was the female who apartment it was. She was unalived within a month of this incident. And her son was also at the location, was also in the room at the time this incident took place. And it's very, very unfortunate, but you should not be found guilty of a crime you did not commit simply because the police need someone, they need a case closed. Daryl went to prison. Daryl had phone calls while he was in prison talking about the incident. The state basically used some of those phone calls and basically said that he admitted to it, but didn't use all of the phone calls. So say if you have an hour's worth of phone calls, him different calling different people at different times, you use a 5-minute intervals at the trial of the phone calls and take those 5 minutes and say that 5 minutes is a presumption of his guilt, which is not the case. There were several times on the phone call where he said he didn't do it. The police should find the person who did do it and not expect him. You have a right to remain silent, but you also don't have to be a witness in a crime just because the police want you to be a witness in a crime. So he wanted the police to do their job and get the person who did it and not hold him responsible for solving their cases for them, which is understandable. And but it's also unfortunate that because they didn't do their job, he is stuck in prison for 60 years. In addition to those phone calls, it was another issue that they had was a body cam video of the girlfriend or the ex-girlfriend or the female at the scene daughter and them asking her questions in regards to this incident. And also the fact that he ran. The fact that he ran at the time of the incident, the trial court committed a reversible error by issuing an instruction of flight as a consciousness of guilt without informing the jury the defendant reason for fleeing. At the time of the trial, the prosecutor insinuated that Daryl ran because he was guilty of the crime. And they basically said that the prosecutor, again, you know how the prosecutors like to come up with stories. They came up with the story that he committed the crime and then he ran because he was guilty when it was blood all in this room. And that for him to would have been committed the crime because the blood was at the door and he ran out of the window, which is by the bed, which where he was, blood was everywhere else. He didn't have no blood on the bottom of his shoes. He had no blood on him at all. It would be impossible for him to have committed this crime and not been doused in blood. It's not possible, especially if you know how blood sprays, or in the forensics of how blood sprays and how it's easily transferred and how it sticks in you, and you in a room when it's a crime is committed, and a witness there said that Daryl did it. And the two, again, I remember I told you it was three individuals in the room. The three individuals in the room: Daryl, the mother, the son. Well, it's four individuals in the room. Four individuals in the room: the mother, the son, Daryl, and the victim in this case. Everybody had blood on them but Daryl. Daryl was the only person who had no type of blood on him at all. In addition to that happening, when the way the son said he saw Daryl commit the crime doesn't fit forensically. Daryl had a private attorney, and he wanted his private attorney to get a forensic psychologist or forensic scientist to talk about the blood spatter and how it would be impossible for him to be where he was, not to have any blood on him with the way the blood sprayed. But the attorney felt as though, since he didn't get paid for his services, he was not defending Darryl anymore. So this is not even a case where you had a public pretender take the case and prosecute it. You had a private attorney who, because he was incarcerated, his family didn't have the funds to provide for his legal defense. So then his attorney stopped working his case. And whatever the prosecutor wanted to do, whatever stories the prosecute, there was no objection. There was no, okay, well, you want to let the phone calls. Why don't you let all the phone calls in? This was a great example of show how incompetent the court is. And if you don't have somebody fighting or advocating for you every step of the way, it's easy to be convicted of a crime you didn't commit. And his attorney, and right now he's trying to sue for ineffective of counsel because his attorney could have got the forensic scientist to show that it was no way possible, especially with him not having any blood on him, to commit the crime. But unfortunately, he's a black man in America, especially in New Jersey, and he was found guilty. And he got 60 years, which is very, very excessive. 60 years in prison for a crime you did not commit. And I talked to him, and I had a conversation with him like, yo, I found some things in here. What's going on with this? And he's like, look, if I did the crime, I'm gonna do the time. I don't have a problem with that. I have a pass. I paid my debt to society, but I'm not for doing a bid that I didn't have anything to do with it. And I wholeheartedly believe everything he was saying, because yes, a lot of times you have people guilty, saying they didn't do it, they did do it. But with the forensics in this case, there's no blood. You can't tell me you're at a murder scene. Everybody and their mama is drenched in blood, but you're the person who committed the crime, and you don't have nothing on your hand, no nothing. That's just like Ray Charles can see that. That's How does that make sense? Another issue that I had with this case, or that he has with this case, in regards to finding him guilty, approximately a month or 2 months later, someone from the house called the police and said this is the murder weapon. And the murder weapon was two people in the house physically touched the murder weapon, in addition to the police collecting the murder weapon, but yet no fingerprints was on the murder weapon. That is very weird, because if you have a murder weapon, and the murder weapon was found 2 months later after a murder was committed, and the police was at the scene. So you telling me the police can't even conduct an investigation where you're on site? You ain't got no metal detecting devices in your car where you could try to look. You see that it just happened. You're right there when it happened. So it's not like you had to get a call and it took the police 30 minutes to show up. The police literally had to go upstairs to the scene of the crime. And they left this house with no murder weapon. And once a crime is committed, you got to wait for the medical examiner to pronounce the body. Ambulance got to come and try to do CPR. It's a process in the house takes from 1 to 10 hours, sometimes 24 hours, because you have to process the scene. Even cleaning up the house, and no murder weapon for a month, 2 months. It doesn't look like proper investigation was conducted at all. And the fact that because he's a black man in America and he doesn't have the money for legal counsel, he's not entitled to have an effective counsel argue for him. These are things that it would be easy to defend against in court. But if you don't have nobody looking out for your best interest because you don't have the dollar amount, you're liable to get charged with a crime you didn't commit. In the streets, is already talking about who did it because they the streets. They know. So, it's just very sad that this happened. It's very important that we look at cases like these, and that's why I'm trying to do the documentary with showing cases like these, because black men should not be in prison for crimes they didn't commit just because they have a system that knowingly targets them, knowing they can get away with it. You should not be able to aggressively target black men simply because they're black men. So you have a black man at the scene. Oh, he did it. We don't have to do an investigation. You can have a phone call with somebody. I've had phone calls with somebody talking about different things, and you take that phone call, me saying, well, it's better him than me, meaning it could, you saying better him than me could mean it's better that he got unalived than I got unalived. That doesn't mean I did it. And you can take phone calls out of context if you don't hear the whole phone call. So if you play in court, if somebody's saying, I'm glad, I wasn't unalive, that means literally I'm glad that that person didn't decide to take me out too. That doesn't mean I committed the crime. And the fact that the court is allowed to manipulate evidence, manipulate that means this, or the fact that you ran when you see a murder committed, that means you're guilty, is beyond me. Because I don't know about you, but if I was in a situation where I saw something being committed, I wouldn't stay around to ask questions. I would try to get out of there too. That makes the most sense. Especially if you see somebody do that to somebody else. It's a very unfortunate situation. We try to bring attention to it, and it's really important that we try to get a legal defense fund. Like, I believe he has a public defender arguing for his case right now. But even when it comes to the court and how you argue things, it's really not what you argue, it's how you argue. And a lot of times with arguing in appeals, if issues were not raised at the trial, you can't argue for it on an appeal. It has to be things that was raised at the trial. If it's not raised at the trial, it's hard to argue on an appeal in regards to this case because they were not raised at the trial. And if you don't have an attorney, or you can't pay your attorney because you're incarcerated, so you can't go to work, and your attorney decides to say, well, you know what, I can't get it, because you could have just got off the case and let him get another attorney and at least have that person fight for him. You just say, no, I'm gonna just tank the case because you're not getting your $2 or $3. So you let the case tank and and work with the prosecutor to get the conviction, and now you have a person in prison for a crime they didn't commit simply because the attorney didn't want to fight for their client. This case is very, very disheartening. It's sad. A young man lost his life, so that should not be taken lightly. But the fact that we have another young man in prison for a crime that he didn't commit is heinous and atrocious. And what people don't realize about these cases with people who are wrongfully incarcerated, if you have a person who is wrongfully incarcerated in prison, you have the murderer out on the street and possibly committing other crimes or doing other things. So what we have to realize and what we have to start understanding about these people who are incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated, wrongfully arrested, wrongfully convicted, if they are not the person who committed the crime, there's somebody out there who did. And that should not be okay. So I want to do everything in my power to try to bring attention to this case. Again, his name is Townsend, Daryl Townsend. And it's just unfortunate that because Camden Police Department refused to conduct a thorough investigation by simply getting the murder weapon at the time of the murder, because if you would have got the murder weapon at the time of the murder, it would have been fingerprints on it. So then it wouldn't be no question of who did what. But because the police failed to do their job and get the murder weapon at the time of the incident. 2 months later, they get it. It has blood on it, but no fingerprints when two people handled it. And I don't know how can I handle something and give it to the police and my fingerprints is not on it. That don't even make sense. No, you're telling me no fingerprints is on this weapon? But if the police was there at the time and they would have did their job at the time, they would have got the murder weapon and it really wouldn't be a question of who did what. In addition to the fact that there was no blood on him.
So I have here with me Darryl Townsend. And is there anything you would like to say to the people?
Yes, I would like to let the people know they can go view my full discovery on Instagram, free Darryl Townsend, and see everything right there. I just want everybody to support, jump behind it, so we can stop this stuff from happening, prevent it from happening to other people too.
Right.
It's clear to see that I ain't commit this crime, and they railroaded me because of my attorney being ineffective and him not getting paid money. If I had money, I would never be in this situation, just like a lot of other black people that's in these type of situations. If we had money, we had the best of the lawyers. Instead, we get public defenders and hand-me-down lawyers and the half-ass do their job, and we end up getting convicted because we don't got the funds to pay for forensic pathologists and investigators and blood splatter experts and stuff like that to prove our innocence. So we get the bad end of the stick. It's sad. I just need everybody to start supporting and jump behind it.
Right.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. That's how I always was raised. Shit.
Right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for allowing me to tell your story. I'm going to post his Instagram in the description. So anybody, if y'all want, y'all can reach out to him. Do you have a GoFundMe or anything set up where people can donate?
Yes, I have a cash app.
A Cash App? Okay.
Yes.
And I'll put that in the description.
I'll put it up. It's London 0704 LONDYN 0704. People, anybody want to donate anything, they could donate to it. And I appreciate it. Anything, you know what I mean? Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, here are some crime scenes. This is the front of the house. Those are the stairs. On top of the stairs, that's the living room. So you walk in the house. That's where this incident occurred. And these are some pictures that were sent to me by Mr. Townsend in regards to the crime scene photos from his case. It's very, very unfortunate circumstances. I believe that was one of the knives that was taken at the scene. At the time of the arrest, 2 knives were taken, but no evidence could be shown that those 2 knives were used in the offense. And then a month later, if you look at the date, 11/5 is the day of the incident. 12/5 is the day that the police came there for the knife. And the knife that was recovered that was determined to be the incident had no fingerprints on it. And 2 people handled the knife to give it to the police on 12/5, but no fingerprints was on the knife. And the knife wasn't recovered at the time of the incident. So that's very, very peculiar. But those are the pictures. So the date from November, it's the day of the incident, the 12th.
I just want to thank everybody for listening, because although you might think I sit up here and diss and everything like that, I'm just a positive person trying to do a positive thing, trying to have a little bit of fun and make my mark in the world.